Okay, we are live. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On today's show, I have a very special guest, a returning guest. This will be our fourth show. His name is John Klyczek. It's Klyczek. And we did shows actually all the way back in 2022. We did one about his excellent book. Title is School World Order, the Technocratic Globalization of Corporatized Education. And then we also followed up to that with a discussion about Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, still very relevant. So you can check those out in my catalog. And also we talked this year about something that I think this article that we're talking about today plays off, but it was about Trump Ed 2025, this whole Heritage Foundation Project 2025. But that full title was School Choice Corporatization, Social Impact Finance, and the Dismantling of the Department of Education. Today, we're going to talk, if you're watching this on Rockfin, Rumble, or X, you'll see the cover of his new article published in August. And the full title of that is From Project 2025 to the PayPal Presidency, School Choice FinTech for a Blockchain Social Credit Economy. There's a lot of kind of acronyms in this, so I'll try to get that cleared out so people understand. But there's a lot of really curious things happening in American education with this new administration, and John can talk more about that. So, John, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, William. Yeah, and if at any point you need me to pause to break down jargon or clarify, just feel free to interrupt, and I'll do that.
It's just like maybe we could just get some of the stuff out that people don't know about.
Okay.
Maybe people don't know about Project 2025, Heritage Foundation. I feel like we talked about some of these educational credits. What is it, the SPAs or something like? Maybe you can define some of those stuff before we get started.
Yeah. So Project 2025 was this playbook that was the 180-day playbook for the Trump presidency. Now we're past the 180-day point, and they've accomplished a lot of what they set out as far as the document. It's for the entire federal executive branch, right? What Trump is going to do. I zoomed in on the Department of Education chapter, and I looked particularly at these the school choice provisions that were being promoted, and two of those school choice reforms. One is called that's one of the acronyms. It's ESAs, which is Education Savings Accounts.
That's it, ESAs.
Yeah, and they're basically the other school choice policy that's promoted is what are called tax credited scholarships, in air quotes. And they're both basically what you might call neo vouchers. So if people are familiar with what vouchers were, they're basically sort of spins on that. And so whereas a voucher used to be where they'd so it's all of these are essentially funneling public tax dollars into either private schools, could be religious schools, but could also be home schools and also education technology companies. So back in the day when they went with vouchers, they'd give you a voucher specifically for private tuition at a private school. A lot of those were challenged in state Supreme Court because of separation of church and state. So they're basically saying you're directly taking government funds and financing a private religious institution. So part of why they came up with education savings accounts and scholarships, tax credit scholarships, is one for the scholarships. Those are facilitated by basically a middleman, which is what's known as an SGO or an SFO. It's a scholarship granting organization or a scholarship funding organization. And what that does is it puts a middleman in between the federal government and the religious institution so that they can make the argument that, right, there is separation of church and state because the government didn't directly fund, right, the religious school. We gave money we tax accredited the donations to the SGO, and then, right, so the government in that instance actually never even puts the money in the SGO. The money that comes from the government goes to the institution, the corporation that's financing the SGO. So there's two steps removed, so they can, right, that's part of why they did that. And then the only difference with an education savings account is that instead of like a one-off where it's like a voucher or scholarship that could be just tuition for a particular school, you get a basket of monies that can be used for tuition at, it could be a private school, religious school, could be a charter school, could be another public school, but could also be education technology products, including generative AI. And so that's those are the school choice reforms that are put forth in Project 2025.
Gotcha. So there's a lot of things happening. This is kind of like this is the new technate. The new technocrats are influencing public policy, school policy in particular. And this is kind of a new lingo. It's totally different than the old kind of way where you would get a student loan or something like that, or a Pell Grant or something like that, right?
Yeah, and there's also a push for it. It's not something that I dove into in either the Trump Ed 2025 piece or this most recent one, but there's also an emphasis in Project 2025 to expand what they're going to call micro grants. And these micro grants, they want to emphasize that they be stipulated for workforce training and workforce development. Right. And so some of these grants would be like at one of the community colleges where I teach. It's probably like this at most of them. So because I'm an adjunct, I get a tuition waiver, but I only get tuition waiver for stuff that's college credit. Like if I want, like I had considered getting a paralegal certificate because it's, germane, I'm rhetoric. So it's an easy transition. My grandma was a legal secretary. Like I know a little bit about it. I've done some pro se stuff. So I was like, I'll use my tuition credit or whatever, my waiver to get that certificate. And they're like, no, you can't do that. I had to pay in the certificate program, which would have been something that could have, increased my income and, could have been, helpful to my career. That was like, it was a couple $1,000s for that course, I believe. I remember, right? Which is much more than a typical class is for credit. But my point is that that's part of what they also want to do. And those micro grants, like the ESAs and the scholarships, there's a big push to use private digital wallet companies to distribute those funds, whether they be the micro grants, the ESAs, the scholarships. And a lot of the same Koch brothers backed state policy network think tanks that were either associated with authors of Project 2025 or are on the advisory board itself. A lot of these think tanks, so I'll just name a few: American Enterprise Institute, Ed Choice, Heritage Foundation. Did I say Cato? Cato Institute have promoted in one way or another the use of digital wallets to distribute these public-private school choice funds. And this is where sort of the apt to the title, where Project 2025, where those old school neoconservative beltway libertarian think tanks converge with basically the Silicon Valley futurist arm of the right-wing machine, that being some of the key members of the PayPal mafia, in particular Peter Thiel, David Sachs, Elon Musk, and others in his orbit like Mark Andreessen.
Right. So they're involved. These are guys with pretty different philosophies. I wouldn't call them like, it's interesting that they would pair up with the Heritage or Project 2025, because I would say their worldviews are very different than maybe a conservative Christian one, right? I mean, have you read some of their stuff?
Yeah. I mean, especially if you're talking about, like sort of the Yarvin crowd that's adjacent to Thiel and those. I mean, like the, GovCorp stuff. But at the same time, an interesting note is that, okay, Peter, a lesser known member of the PayPal mafia, is Rod D. Martin, who is a member of the Council for National Policy, right? Basically the right-wing version of the Council on Foreign Relations. So there is some overlap there. And then even with someone like Thiel, he was one of the founding editors of the Stanford Review, which has basically pushed a lot of the culture wars stuff that is the impetus for why people are jumping into school choice. I mean, the main driver for them is that, well, if it's not, they didn't want to get the health treatment that we were forced to get. It's that they didn't want their children subjected to all things woke. So Thiel's had his hands kind of in both worlds, so to speak. So I mentioned Stanford Review. He also co-authored The Diversity Myth with David Sachs, who's also an editor at Stanford Review. But Thiel's also been involved at Hoover Institution. He also wrote he was a speechwriter for Bill Bennett, and Bill Bennett he's Heritage and American Legislative Exchange Council, but he was also he took over the mantle of something called Project BEST, Basic Education Skills Through Technology, which is this plan to set up public-private partnerships between the Department of Education and big tech companies to institute computerized learning that would use operant conditioning algorithms to psychologically condition students for workforce training, career pathways, etc. And
that sounds horrible. So this is like the follow-on to Bill Bennett, like for people who are old enough to remember Bill Bennett. Like, I know this, like,
yeah. And another link to the current Trump administration through Bennett is basically, and the school choice movement. He's the guy that set up K-12 Inc. It was basically the first, it's not the very first, there was a couple obscure like pilots, but like the first that was like became a staple, or like it is the backbone of the virtual charter schooling industry. That's K-12 Inc. And some of the early funding came from Larry Ellison, right? The head of Oracle. And he's obviously, right, been tapped to help facilitate the Stargate AI project as well.
What's the Stargate AI project? I don't know what that is.
That is largely a so OpenAI is also part of it, or was tapped for it. Now, was NVIDIA tapped? There's a third person that's part of it, and I can't remember. I feel like it might be NVIDIA, but off the top of my head, can't remember the third one. But it's largely a project to set up the data centers that are needed to process and track and trace all of the generative AI data that's being used, that's going to be used ultimately for social credit analytics. And some of that data is going to be the AI plugged into not just the digital wallets, the financial technology or fintech, but also the education technologies or ed tech, and basically going to look at feedback loops between the fintech inputs and then the ed tech outcomes. And then based on that, those social credit analytics are going to determine, right, the student's pathway through the particular career paths, like as I laid out in Project BEST, which was, the whistle was blown on that by my mentor, Charlotte Thompson Iserbeat, who worked in the Department of Education under Ronald Reagan. So that's what and there's been, I believe when they tapped Altman and Ellison, they were also suggesting that part of what they're going to use these data centers in the Stargate project for was I think the cancer moonshot, basically precision medicine. They want to do the personalized mRNA stuff. It's basically precision medicine. That's sort of the healthcare end of the emerging social credit economy.
I remember when the Trump, came into office earlier this year, Ellison said, we can cure cancer. So they're selling this as literal cure for cancer type stuff. But public-private is kind of like a softer term for fascism. It's literally fascism, like when you have corporate entities in the state working together. I can't imagine that it's really that hands-on if it's centralized and digitized. I can't imagine it's hands-on and doesn't have that kind of artificial, sterile, kind of techno element to it. And in education, is that really what a parent or a student needs? Is this kind of like centralization?
No, I mean, listen, I can speak confidently with regard to the language arts and the learning and instruction of language arts, insofar that AI is not going to help you become more adept at processing and communicating a particular language, because whether you're just using Grammarly to have it check your verbs and sentence structure, etc., or whether you're having it basically tell you if your topic sentences relate to your thesis, and whether your topic sentence is supported with reasoning and evidence, or whether the warrant summarizes the paragraph, whether all of these types of things, if you're constantly asking ChatGPT or OpenAI's partnership with Conmigo, their AI, to basically, take the place of the recursive process that is language development. You're sort of outsourcing the thinking, right? If there's anything that's going to make you a better communicator, a better writer, it's right, having monitoring your inner monologue, making sure that the categories in your mind match the categories of reality. That's why writing is particularly useful for not only making sure that you're communicating precisely, but also more accurately discovering what the ideas in your own mind, actually being able to crunch those. So if every time you go to basically check your own thought process or your own writing for non-contradiction and consistency, development, etc., then you're basically that recursive part of the mind that basically makes the language processing muscles in your brain stronger. You're basically allowing chat GP, whatever AI bot you're using, to basically take up that space in your frontal lobe.
Right. I mean, we take it for granted. You go to a place, whether it's a college or high school, to get that information, and then you contain it, maintain it, and then you use it in your life. So whatever history, like you said, language or anything, accounting principles. So then if you're putting it out into some other, or relying on AI, how much real education are you getting? Or you're relying on some third-party source other than yourself? Like, are you being robotized? Maybe is that too far of a stretch?
No, I mean, I listen, the way I even stumbled on to this whole project and started to write about it was that I was working for an online tutoring company that was a subsidiary of Pearson. Pearson it's a UK company. It's actually been a textbook company for forever, basically, many decades. Now that everything's digital, it's moved into ed tech, and they had an online tutoring platform. It was called Smart Thinking. And one day they told me that IBM's Watson, which is the premier AI system before all things generative AI, that bot was going to data mine me. And effectively, I'm working every day so that this thing can replace me. And so, I kind of think down the pipe and I go, well, if it can replace me, right? And especially when it comes, right, if I'm teaching language arts, if I'm teaching intellectual skills, right, then anything that like it can teach better than me, or better or as good, well then the student who might be learning it, right, that AI could learn that, right, and reproduce that cognitive skill just as efficiently. So effectively what you're going to be doing is replacing not just the teacher but the student, and essentially intellectual labor itself, right? Like the life of the mind. And so, you don't really need, my book sort of looks at the progression of screen-based technologies to wearable technologies, eventually to implantable technologies, in order to interface with the AI that's going to be built from the machine learning derived from the algorithms from the screen-based and the wearable technologies. You don't actually need the implantable, the neural link, to have the AI sort of to become transhuman, in the sense that AI is doing half of your thoughts for you, right? All you have to do is constantly be, whether it's linked with a wearable or just on your screen, whether it's a large language that can use it in natural language or a text-based chatbot. If everything you have a question about what you are not sure about in your own mind, and you go to Chat GPT, even if it's just, hey, am I remembering this historical fact correct? Or, right, does this sentence make sense? Right? That recursive part of your mind where you're actually, right, monitoring you're essentially, right, becoming half AI, in the sense that you're allowing it to do the thinking for you. And the other thing is that I see people using this stuff for, I'll use it for my business for this or that. Well, at a certain point, if we're going to mainline using AI to expedite work, you have to just basically start to trust it. Because if you're going to take the time to double check it, then you might as well just did it to yourself in the first place. And if we're going to go ahead and trust it, then we're BF Skinner, his dream come true, which is a real stimulus response. Like the whole idea of the teaching machine, which, by the way, stuff like Clever and Newton that Peter Thiel's invested is the digital version. Admittedly, these companies admit it, the digital version of BF Skinner's teaching machine, his Skinner box.
Wow.
And so their theory of the mind is that the monologue is noise. All you really are is nervous system behavioral reflexes to stimuli in the environment. So with ed tech, you have learning stimuli. It's virtualized. It might be gamified, maybe multimedia, but basically it's going to boil down to multiple choice, question, answer, true, false, short essay, etc. And right between, especially the screen based, right between the learning stimuli, the prompt, whatever it is, and your response, whatever you mark on the multiple choice, or there's that life of the mind. There's that space in there where you can think about the stimulus, how you'd like to respond, whether you'd like to respond, right? And then whether or not that response, right, is germane. Once we get to the point where we're doing large, complex, whether it's developing, a large text, an essay or a contract, right? And we're going to trust it. We're basically at stimulus response like that, right? Because the part of that little space in between the stimulus and the response where you actually think about things and question it and make sure that it's accurate before you go through with the response, you necessarily have to bypass all that and just keep clicking and clicking and clicking.
Yeah, it's really something else. And here's the other thing about AI. Can you get away from the wizard behind the curtain, so to speak? Because somebody's training that, you're still, if these things are implemented as you write in this article, you're still going to have guys like Teal or whoever or any of these other characters kind of having to spawn. And like we've seen AI do really horrible stuff. Like it might even be more unethical. And I mean, you talk about like Skinner box, like imagine like some of the responses inhuman and very yeah, like you said, like the learning is like cold-blooded responses. Like I can't imagine this is a good implication for actual real personal growth and learning.
Yeah, well, I mean, a couple of things like well, first of all, so to your point, and this is like, so the AFT, American Federation of Teachers, second largest teachers union in the nation, has recently announced a partnership with OpenAI to train teachers to incorporate AI into the classroom. And I should note real quick that OpenAI, Sam Altman, also part of that Stargate project. So, right, you have the left, right, the AFT, using the same AI that Trump has tapped for his Stargate system. You know what I mean? So, left, right dialectic thing. But their rationale, the AFT's rationale, is that, well, it's not going away. We're not going to stop it. So we need to influence it. We need to be able to shape it, right, by interacting with it. And right, the premise or it's suggested that, right, that it will begin to reflect, right, the people that use it. And sort of they are designed to, right, be hyper affirmative, right? Now, however, on one end of so you might have like competing AIs, like some that are super left and super right. I mean, nowadays there's apparently no space for a nuanced conversation down the middle anymore. But in the meantime, I'd noted that in that first piece, and I don't know how much we got into on the last episode, but so a lot of those scholarship granting organizations that oversee the scholarship school choice funds are impact investment companies. And impact investment companies, the way they work is they put money up front to help improve certain outcomes. Could be healthcare outcomes, could be education outcomes, could be workforce outcomes, oftentimes with a particular emphasis on servicing marginalized communities. So, right, marginalized ethnicities or a class or gender or sex, whatever, right? All those different identity categories, DEI categories. And based on whether the student or the individual achieves those outcomes, the impact investment firm or nonprofit will either get that money back, or if it exceeds, right, it can make a profit. It's going to get the money back from the government. Well, what's necessary for that is data mining, right? And it's not just at, to extrapolate all that data at scale, right? Like, so super deep at the individual level, but then, right, by age, by other demographics, again, race, class, sexuality, gender, etc., zip code, socioeconomic bracket, institution-wide, right? You need necessarily AI to get those metrics, Okay, so I'll give you a little anecdote to illustrate this. And the broader point I'm trying to make is that the rise of the fintech and the AI and the ed tech, all as an ecosystem to data mine those feedback loops that I mentioned, is part and parcel to this emerging social credit social impact investment economy. So there's a new company. I recently have had several of my tutoring hours replaced by a bot at a company called Upswing. And the bot is called Anna. I think that's a cute little sort of a play on analytics, because one of the main things they promote or tout on that page that showcases Anna is all their different outcomes data. Oh, look, and like I said, individual scale, group scale, etc. And so I look at the company and I go, well, who funds this thing? Well, just happens to be a bunch of impact investment firms and venture capital firms. Some of those impact investment firms, one of them in particular is social finance, which I wrote about in the previous article. If my memory serves me, anybody, you can go to the article to check the particulars, but I'm pretty sure it was social finance partnering with Charles Koch Foundation and Google for some workforce training. And I did another video on the connections between social finance and a UK online, it's called FutureLearn, online learning platform. It's called FutureLearn, which is connected to their open university, which was part of Study 11, UNESCO Study 11, which is basically the international version of Project BEST. Better way to say that actually is that Project BEST was our domestic version of UNESCO Study 11. Okay. So so basically what we have here is, right, you need the AI to get the data. You need the data to get the impact investment grants, and the impact investment firm needs the data to get the money back from the government. So, right, it's an ecosystem, and all of those pieces are all working together.
Wow. And you wrote that article about the Study 11 like in 2021. So this is kind of an ongoing agenda too, right?
Yeah.
You can see that on Unlimited Hangouts. So I'll put links up to both of these articles in the show notes. How much money is involved? What's the background? And there's got to be some kind of like financial benefit to these guys.
Oh, well, there's a lot. So, I mean, one thing we can note is that digital wallet companies that I showcased in the article include Class Wallet, Odyssey, Merit International, Student First Technologies, SAP, Ariba. The majority of these are funded by one or more of various venture capital firms. Andreessen Horowitz pops up, but oftentimes some like Bling Capital or Tusk Venture Partners, if you look at their portfolios, like Bling Capital is invested in Palantir. Tusk Venture Partners has common investments with Thiel's Founders Fund. Andreessen Horowitz also has common investments with Thiel's Founders Fund, but all three of those venture capital firms are funding Odyssey, which touts that it's the first fintech designed specifically for ESAs. Then you have Andreessen Horowitz also funds Merit International, which boasts that it authenticates the purchases through a digital identity ecosystem. And then another venture capital firm that's funds Merit International is called Alumni Venture, and it also shares has overlaps in its portfolio with that of the founders firms. They basically share common investments. And then, one other venture capital firm worth noting is the Stand Together Ventures Lab. That's basically a spinoff of the nonprofit and the trust for Stand Together, nonprofit, Stand Together, non-trust, which is founded and funded by Charles Koch. And also the trust is part of the state policy network. So basically, to your question about where's the money to be made, clearly all of a nice cross section of the venture capital oligarchs, technocrats behind the Trump administration currently are thoroughly invested in this digital wallet industry, but they're also invested in the ed tech product. So I mentioned that Thiel is invested in Clever and Newton. Andreessen Horowitz is invested in Udacity, and Udacity partners with something called Effectiva, and Effectiva, it traffics in galvanic skin response monitors. So some of the wearables, the social emotional learning wearables, and facial recognition technologies that can infer emotions, right? So for emotional analytics. And then also, the PayPal Mafia folk in particular. So Peter Thiel and I believe David Sachs as well too as well. He's the head of he's the AI and crypto czar. So he's the one that's going to oversee the rise of the stablecoin economy. And there's a lot of money to also be made in just the rise of stable coins. But part of why I wrote this piece was that I saw that the emergence of the digital wallet industry in the arena of school choice was just one aspect of, or part and parcel to, the rise of this crypto, programmable, trackable, traceable, stable coin economy, not just right at the national scale, but globally, because the money to be made on the stable coins, there's several ways that money is going to be made on it. So the first one is, or not necessarily the first, but one of them is the data itself. So if you're allowed to make the stable coin, right, you get to keep the data that's extrapolated from who the transfer of the tokens and who uses them for what, and then you can broker that data. So that's money. Okay. Another way that another area where money is to be made, or maybe you say saved, but it's still money that's going to be made. And that is if you're moving large amounts of money, especially overseas, you can bypass the SWIFT system. Okay. But then in the meantime, it's also being used to prop up dollar hegemony, because in order for the in order to be authorized to issue a stable coin, you have to back it 1-to-1 with either treasury notes, bonds, or bills. Right. So in other words, you have to put in money to the notes, bonds, and bills that back the value of the dollar. Okay. And so then basically that's going to prop up dollar hegemony and everything that comes along with that geopolitically. Right. So there's money to be made on the stable coin industry itself. There's money to be made in the digital wallet industry. There's money to be made in right. And the portfolios of the people invested in all of these are, again, some of the key players puppeteering the Trump administration.
Right. There's money to be made in every element of it. And what's the piece of the yearly budgetary pie that's apportioned towards education every year in the United States?
It's like 230. Most recently, I looked at about 230 billion. Yeah. Now, almost 2/3 or 3/4 of that, somewhere between 2/3 and 3/4, is just for the basically college loan program. And I don't know how much of that is like, I think they call them Stafford loans, right? They might have changed the names of some of the loans, or if those are Pell Grants, FAFSA. I don't know how that's diced up, but it's for monies to be used for students to go to college, which is to me absurd, because it's like, so you're telling me that, so it's basically, if it's 2/3, it's like 100 and roughly, let's say 100 and conservatively between 150 and 170 billion of that is for college. So you only give, right, you give this much money for the children when they're developing the skills they need to be successful in college. You barely give them anything. And then when they finally get there, you go, here's a bunch of money that, and even if I had Pell Grants, okay, but it doesn't cover everything. So, it's like, a little bit to here's some free money that you don't have to pay back. Take out a few loans, right? And so encouraging people to take out loans that, a lot of students that come to college, they don't necessarily come prepared. I've taught a lot of what's called developmental courses, right? Like it's not college credit. They're English. They can't start at English 101. They have to take English 98 or English 99 to get up to par, right? And they can use some of that monies for that. But it's just, when people argue about what's, the federal government is bloated and too much money and, controlling K through 12 education, that's not really true. Most of that is state funded. Right. The bulk of the federal education budget that they were talking about, we're going to cut it by whatever percent, is actually for college monies. It's just, to me, it's a very backwards system. You would think it'd be the opposite. You'd put as much money, if you're going to spend 230 billion and you're going to cut it into 3/4 and 1/4 or 2/3 and 1/3, I would switch it around, right? It'd be more money for when they're young and right. So that by the time they get to the place where it's going to cost them money that they, by the way, can't bankrupt, they are more likely to succeed and not be in basically, a debtor for the rest of their life.
Right. It's a lot of money. There's a lot of money floating around there. And how does the social credit kind of system apply to all this stuff that these VCs and AI guys and PayPal mafia type people are involved in? What do they want to do? How do they want to overlay their whole agenda with social credit?
Well, I guess one of the best ways to kind of describe how these pieces fit together to build the social credit is, a nice cross section would be if we looked at 3 of the digital wallet companies. So one is, I mentioned already, is Merit International. Another is Student First Technologies, which partners with MasterCard. And then there's the other one, SAP Arba. I had mentioned that already. It's actually the parent company is a partner with the World Economic Forum. But across these 3, I mentioned Merit International has a digital identity ecosystem. Student First Technology, it has like an online marketplace that it's called the Theodore platform, which, quote, empowers stakeholders, right? Because we're based in conservative and right wing. We don't do stakeholder capitalism, right? But actually public-private partnerships in education's like, I don't know, stakeholder capitalism for schools. The Theodore platform, it's powered by what's called Quinn IQ AI, human in the loop machine learning. And then the SAP Arba, this one by itself actually could do everything that's necessary. But any one of these other companies just needs to add the 2 other pieces. So SAP Arba, it's a fintech company that specializes in fintech services for other large companies. It can help set up blockchain, AI, ESG monitoring systems and services. So, right, if you take a digital wallet and you plug a programmable, trackable, traceable stable coin in it, by the way, that's part of the argument for why they want the digital wallets, because, right, they need to make sure that no waste, fraud, and abuse, right? That's the mantra for all these things, right? So they want to make sure that the parents aren't spending those monies on things that are not authorized. And I guess you can get some of the ones that have existed, you get prepaid visas and they are pre-programmed, but the codes are not programmed with much precision. So like, I guess some of the, like you could get certain school supplies from Walmart and you could kind of buy stuff at Walmart that's not school supplies, and people got caught doing that. Right. But the whole argument here is that, right, if you have a token, a crypto stablecoin token, it could be precisely programmed only for these particular authorized products and services. Right. So if you take the digital wallet, you put the programmable, trackable, traceable stablecoin in it. Right. And then you add on AI social credit, or I'm sorry, AI analytics, and you incorporate that with a digital ID system. That's also part of the blockchain that's going to be facilitating the crypto coins, because the blockchain doesn't just transfer the tokens, right? It also keeps a ledger of any of the associated data with the who, what, where, when, and why, what was purchased, when it was purchased, by whom, etc. Right. So with all of those things together, especially if you add ESG monitoring to it, you have all the pieces you need to extrapolate those social credit analytics between the feedback loops from the fintech inputs and the ed tech outcomes in order to predetermine the career pathways that the students will be allotted to go through. And as they make their way through it, you'll have basically we've got federal, the big beautiful bill, by the way, it ran through basically a combination of the ESAs and the scholarships that were put forward in Project 2025. And the only difference is that it's actually the worst parts of both, because one was the scholarships were going to be only for tuition, and then the ESAs were going to be separate for a basket of services. Now they're going to call them scholarships with this SGO middleman, but they're going to give you a basket of monies. Okay. Yeah.
But it all comes down to just digitizing your whole educational experience. The stable coin, for people who don't know, is a coin, like a digital coin, but it's based on a finite good like gold or something like that. So it never loses or shouldn't change value that much. But it's just that they're going to move everybody into this digital process. Education will be totally digitized all over. And then you'll have to get a wallet. You'll have to have something on your phone or have, Coinbase. I don't even know. Like all these things will be hyper digitized. And it's just like people should be very suspicious of that. It's also like if these guys seem to be benign. They always present themselves as sales guys and they're selling you on this thing. It's good. They're always making money off it on the backside. And then what if you get a malevolent figure? What if you're in there and all of a sudden some malevolent figure comes in and starts tinkering around with all the stuff you've relied on to have in a digital space? Like, dude, how much are they really thinking through all this stuff?
Well,
Like
yeah. No, sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, it's just like this is like, okay, now my whole educational career is dependent upon me jumping through all these freaking hoops like a trained dog and getting all this digital stuff, and then OpenAI is gonna so-called maximize my training. And whether that's even an education, is it an education really to have some kind of AI helping you through it, or this you talked about Upswing and Anna or something like that?
Yeah. Well, there's a famous case that and Charlotte wrote about this. And I've talked about it on the people go back and one of the interviews I did with Courtney a couple years back when they were trying to stop some of the school choice stuff that was happening in Tennessee. One of the first experiments with basically the voucher system, public funds of private schools, was in Vichy, France. Okay. And, a lot of the particulars of that elude my memory but the crux of the story is that they came in with the public funds for private schools and religious schools. And then it was however long later, I'm pretty sure it was a socialist administration came in and said, well, we can't have religious schools funded by government monies and not have them overseen by the government. And so then all those religious schools became basically government schools. So there's already precedent set for, historically that, right, you might, it's all anti-woke, yay. But then what happens when, a blue administration comes in and then basically, they won't get rid of the voucher. They won't get rid of the system. They'll just change, the provisions for it. And here, look, in the state of Illinois, where I live, when I wrote the first chapter of my book, it was at first an article. And basically, what I had seen was the governor at the time, Bruce Rauner, Republican. He was stalling on the budget. I saw it as a ploy to push public institutions into private receivership, including public education. By the end of the whole thing, without going into all the other details, I probably told this story on the show before, so people go back and listen. They had a voucher program in place. Okay. Now, I think it was this year. It was late last year. I'm pretty sure it was this year. They just passed a bill where in Illinois, all homeschools have to be registered basically with the state and have to follow state guidelines. Now, I don't know if there's any loopholes where you can somehow be homeschooling and not fall under that, but I guarantee you, if you take that voucher money, you have to comply with those provisions. And one of them today is going to be mental health. Did I say Anna does mental health? Did I tell you that?
No, but I'm not surprised, which is even more really dangerous too.
Yeah, because I was like, I think there was something I forgot to get back to. But so one of the things they just passed in Illinois is everybody that attends public school has to get a mental health check. Now you can opt out of it. There's a short window. If you miss it, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's it. But that would be an example of, right, something that if you take voucher monies because you wanted to get out of a so-called woke school and you wanted to homeschool, you take that voucher money. Well, or maybe you took the voucher money because you didn't want the health treatment that was mandated, right? Well, in Illinois, you're going to be mandated to, unless you go through the loophole, eventually they'll probably close that little window. But, the implications here are that, right, if they can mandate mental health checks, they can mandate biological health checks, right? And so all of these, that was Charlotte's main warning for homeschoolers and private schools. She was avowedly against school choice was that it will not just be the corporatization of public school and the end of public school. It'll also be the end of private schools and religious schools. It'll bring in one system. We might use the term that Curtis Yarvin used, which is GovCorp.
GovCorp. Wow. Yeah.
But
that's disturbing. It sounds like something from 1984.
Yeah.
These guys are jerks too. A lot of these like crypto tech guys or PayPal mafia, they're personally jerks. Altman and Thiel and some of these other, I don't know, Musk maybe, I don't know, but
yeah, I mean, Thiel wrote an article for Cato. The title is "Education of a Libertarian," and quote, "I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible." Right. And then also as part of that, it's quote, "New technologies may create a new space for freedom." I mean, it sounds like Curtis Yarvin to me.
Yeah, right. Isn't that the Dark Enlightenment and all this stuff? Like, holy smokes.
Yeah. I mean, that's, basically your technate, so to speak.
Yeah.
But to the Anna thing, I wanted to mention that. So it showcases the bot, and there's like a little it's supposed to be a student talking to it, and he's like, "Oh, can you help me with my homework? Can you help me with this?" By the end of the thing, it's asking it for the mental health services, and it gives it the mental health help. And then by the end of it, it's the student says something. Pretty sure it says "I love you" to the bot. I know it gives heart emojis.
Wow.
Yeah, I think if you go to, it's not the home page. It's like on the page where it's asking you, scroll down a little bit. Not on the team. It would be, oh man, scroll down a little bit. Wait, come up. There it is. I'm sorry. There it is. There's the video. You want to play it? It's only a couple minutes.
Hi, I'm Anna.
Yeah.
Can you hear the sound?
No, I can't hear it.
I have to do something where I put it into this.
Well, while you do that, I'll just tell you a little bit more about my analysis of it, which is everything I just said is disturbing, right? First, here's another part. I can't imagine if it's for mental health. I don't have to have the empirics or the statistics to be able to strongly infer that a human being bonding with a bot is going to have mental health problems, right? You're going to come away dissociating more and more from human interaction. And this is what these people think is appropriate to advertise as like a selling point. Like, I mean, aside from the disturbing implications of what they're offering, like how out of touch the people who thought this was an appropriate advertisement have to be with regular people.
Wow. Okay. I think I've got the audio to work. So let's see if this will work.
Yeah.
Can you hear that?
Yep. Yeah.
Hi.
First is the daily planner. It's going to ask it to help you get organized. I think you can maximize that window.
Okay, let me see.
In the lower right of the window.
Right, let me try.
I could just see you were squinting to read it. It looked like.
So Anna's going to be a teacher and an organizer,
and a mental health and emotional confidant.
My daughter's terrified of AI. She doesn't even want to hear about it. She doesn't like the implication at all. I don't blame her.
I heard people in an office when I was tutoring today as I walked past that were one of the first times I've ever heard anybody upset about it. So there aren't people.
She's 18. She's like, all her friends are like, this is not good for anybody. Like, this is invading our lives.
And then the other thing is, none of this would be appropriate for a human teacher or tutor to do. Like, you're not allowed to ask about a student's mental health. It's illegal. It's illegal. That's why they have.
So these things can do this invasive and then keep data on you too. Right. And can you imagine like all that data in a centralized space where somebody else can access it?
And then,
like, holy smokes! Back in 2012, Bob said he was having an emotional, complex and he feels like a woman, and then you come out of it, and then like some jerk like Altman gets it like, back in 2012 you said you felt like a freaking princess. I don't know, I'm just saying, like, it almost becomes like a blackmail thing. And these people are pieces of I'm not going to say that word, but these are not good people, man. I'm sorry.
Well, they're always trying to destigmatize mental health, and it's like, I mean, maybe,
You're
but the problem is
re-stigmatizing it.
they're going to use it against you, even if they're telling you it's not a stigma. When we get to the end of the social credit road, anything that can be used against you will be used against you.
Right. I've had my FBI file jumped out on the public. I'm not even that much of a public figure. I know for a fact the last administration dumped my FBI file out.
Like made it publicly available?
Well, they distributed it to people that, not to public. They seeded it through different things in a very clever way. Like, I know for a fact, I can't explain the details of it, but it's like, come on, man. This is not, I'm clean. Like, I'm fine. Like, I don't like to brag about how clean I am, but I've like no criminal record or anything. I have no dots on my law degree or in my, as a member of the state bar or anything. But the fact that these are investigative things that they can put out is really dangerous. And like, that's even though this is like, if this is like the FBI where they're collecting data and storing it on you, there's the potential for abuse and misuse. So the FBI has abused and misused information in the past. They've driven people to suicide. Imagine this. I mean, this AI is driving people to suicide. Like, there are cases like
literally, yeah.
There was an interview I saw the interview with Tucker Carlson and Altman, and he kind of said, yeah, we had like 10% of the suicides were due to AI, but this kind of detached, unemotional air. Like, he just didn't, this is just what happened. It's like, whoa, this is dangerous.
That's the people making it. And then the way this advertisement is being promoted is that you're supposed to fall in love with the bot, which obviously, right? I don't know who would ever think that's appropriate between a teacher and a student, even if they were of adult age, right?
Dude, they can groom. This is all kinds of creepy. Digital grooming is not far off on the horizon. They're already kind of digital grooming through Roblox and things like that. And so, like, you could do all just the potential for abuse, and the fact that it's not even codified in the law yet is also really something else. Like, so that these kind of areas are very amorphous, and like, it takes almost like years or decades even for the legal system to catch up to the kind of problems because they haven't experienced them yet. Like, AI should be sued for like driving these guys to suicide. I read one case. I'm like, this is a causative factor in a death. This is like tantamount to manslaughter or something like that.
Well, this this is the accelerationist break stuff and fix it later administration.
Yeah.
So by the time we get around to filing lawsuits, they'll be on to, and this stuff is evolving so fast that there's going to not just they'll be on to the next move, but a whole new set of legal problems that, like you said, it's going to take time just to figure out how to take it to court.
Right. I mean, I think that this is really super dangerous. And I think the people who sense the danger of AI are right. Here's the next question. How far off are we from the Butlerian Jihad? Do you know what the Butlerian Jihad is?
No.
It's from Frank Herbert's Dune. And it's something that happened in that world space where they literally said that you cannot make a thinking human. Do not make a digital thinking human. And they had a jihad, like a holy war against that because of the abuses. And I sense that really deeply right here is like, this can be used for a thing for good, just like any other technology, good or evil. So if you have an evil person, like, it's going to be bad. And there's,
well, it's definitely whatever bad effects it has, it's magnified to a developing mind, right? Like, I mean, it's bad enough for an adult, right? But in a developing mind, like, if we're going to put, if we're going to put guardrails on something, I mean, maybe we could at least start right with the youth, but they're not going to do that. There's way too much money to be made.
They're just not like, they haven't developed that kind of hard bark on their consciousness of like distilling information or knowing when they're being BS'd or when there's like baleful influence upon them and stuff like that. They're learning. So they're trying to take it in. And, they're going to be beset with some real serious challenge. They've already been like this generation.
I mean, the first, 2020,
yeah,
everything, not
2020.
being able to see other people's faces when you're learning how to read body language and parse emotions based on facial expressions. And then now you're going to get thrown into interacting with avatars and bots all the time.
Right.
Yeah, I feel
the other thing is like that used to be the whole thing of why getting a true education was to have kind of almost a pro seminar thing where you could talk to somebody who's been through the educational process, the pre-digitized educational process, so that these questions can be contextualized and expanded upon. And that was really kind of almost like the defining thing is how close are you to your professor? Are you in a 500-person class talking to a guy giving 8 lectures? Or are you in a place where the ratio's 10 to 1 and you're sitting with a guy who's like read thousands of books and is an expert on whatever subject, and he's helping you work your way through it? Because these people aren't going to have that context. The AI, I doubt, will have the full contextualization, especially contextualizing things to make decisions on in 2025. I just don't buy it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the main goal here is, we talked about profit, but I think we're getting to the point in sort of the evolution of technology where profit doesn't even really make a whole lot of sense. Like, they pretty much, I don't want to say everything, but they own the vast majority of everything between, the private equity and venture capital alone, right? Sort of the private equity, what's already there, and the stuff that's going to be emerging through the venture capital. Like, it's more about really just supply chain management, right? Like, so we don't really need people to have thinking skills and abilities, right? We just need them to be able to have the correct response to the AI stimulus so that the supply chain moves as smoothly as possible. If there's any place where money is going to be made, I think the end game is this, and that's basically they're going to securitize human beings and basically put you into literal and figurative bondage through what they call social impact bonds or human capital bonds. Right. So, Alison McDowell's done a lot of good work on this and talked about it, and I didn't really understand, or I couldn't articulate it like I can now until I wrote this article. And as part of that, had a conversation with former editor of Bitcoin Magazine, Mark Goodwin. Everybody should check out his series it's called The Chain, is like the overarching theme of the titles. It's all about something in the chain. It's about blockchain and crypto. But I was asking, and we were talking about, how stable coins are debating whether they should have been classified as a security or a commodity. And, so me, I'm not a finance guy. I said, can you help me understand, what's the difference, right? And they said, well, the best way to explain this is what they call this, like the Howey Farms or the Howey Orchards test. And the idea is a security has expected future profits that are not baked into the increased valuation on the asset itself. So like the Howey Orchards was like, right, if you bought land from Howey Orchards and you held onto it, it could appreciate in value, right, on its own, whether through inflation or the markets, whatever. But what you were buying in the securities was the fruit that was going to grow on it and be sold, right? So it was this added expected future value. So based on all the AI analytics that they're going to extrapolate from the social credit, right, they're going to do something like this. They're going to go, if student A meets career outcomes B and C, that means that, and I've seen the metrics where they do this at American Enterprise Institute and other institutions, where they correlate learning outcomes either with criminal justice outcomes or mental health outcomes or welfare outcomes, right? So they say if the student doesn't do so good in school, if they don't get to the end of their career path, that's going to cost us money, right? We're going to have to put them in jail. We're going to have to give them mental health treatment. We might need to retrain them, right? It's going to cost us that money. But if they do really good, they're going to make money and put more money into the economy. So those are the expected future profits on the students' learning analytics.
Wow.
They're going to take that, securitize it, put it in a bond and attach it to the student, and then have the social impact companies basically bet on the student or invest in them. And
it's like fantasy football for education. Holy smokes.
And that was
talk about a human resource. Holy smokes, it
Yeah.
takes it to the next level. Yeah.
Or human bondage, right? Or
Yeah, human bondage.
feudalism, right? All those things. It's like
It
quite
shows how bad it's
literally-
become. They did that. So they made this kind of like thing about education or people's value as a career, as a resource. You know, just even that sensibility. It's like you're just a resource, and then this is even extrapolating on it, and it brings back this whole concept that's obviously in fiction, but I think it's interesting because this Butler is actually a real guy. He's a real philosopher. Have you heard of him?
No.
He was against kind of technology. He's like a Luddite.
Okay.
And so the Butlerian Jihad in this fictional book by Herbert is this thing against things, but they had like books on it, but it's a theme that runs through Herbert's books. And so they have these human people they call mentats. But we must negate the machines that think. Humans must set their own guidelines. This is not something machines can do. And that's kind of like a thing to thinking about. This is like the guardrails are off with AI.
Yeah.
The guardrails that like somebody who comes in and talks to a professor are off. Like the professors know like this is unethical and this is crossing the student teacher, relationship, or even these are other relationships, even in psychology, doctors, lawyers, they all have this kind of relationships with people that they're not supposed to cross. But what about AI doesn't?
Yeah,
like
right. And I just showed you two ways that bot that they're promoting for us to use is clearly crossing two lines. One is the HIPAA line asking about mental health, and the other one is totally inappropriate, emotional bonds, saying you love each other, to the student teacher, like, both of those things. So like we would basically be fired or go to jail, but the bot and keep records of all that data and aggregate it.
That's just the beginning. Oh, you love me, I love you too. Do you want to have a thing together or spend time, or we can watch a movie together? I can play a movie for you, little child. What? I don't know, it gets creepy. Like those guardrails are off. Like it's super. People's fears and concerns about AI in the teaching environment are valid. They are super valid. Like, whoa. I don't,
that upswing at my school, like I noticed the other day, I saw an email. Oh, well, we got a partnership with AT&T and CompuDopt, Adopt a Computer, to get devices to the students. Well, there's been rentals and loaners during lockdowns. There was at the school, but I don't recall anywhere they were like more or less giving them away, and certainly not in partnership with AT&T and this. So the timing of it, while we're hiring upswing, that's to make sure that the students have the devices so that they can use Anna, so that the school can, and they even said in the email, we're going to get, it's not just that the students will have their own data and dashboard, that we'll have their data, and we'll have institution-wide data, and that's what they're going to use to get their grants. So,
it's scary, man. People need to read your article. Where can they find it?
That's at Unlimited Hangout is where you can find it. And there's a link. I got it linked up on my website, schoolworldorder.info. If you go to the articles menu.
So it's schoolworldorder.info. That's where they can find links and your other work and your other articles. Because we mentioned that other one, Study 11, which I wasn't aware of either. But anytime I hear anything from the UN too, that's another thing to be scared about. Like the decisions made at the top that permeate down to us are like almost anti-human, man. It's kind of like that Rockefeller kind of like human resource mentality from the 50s, where they don't take the whole human being into account. You're just an automaton, a robot to them. Yeah.
I mean, that's why I think it's ultimately just at this point, it's about supply chain management. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just making sure you are literally a cog in their, you're a little cog and getting pushed around by these bigger digital cogs. And the whole goal of having this social impact investment system is just a way to make things spin. Cause like people go, well, how, so if you're a company, you might go like, oh, this student has really great, analytics. I'm sure I'll get my money back on him, right? So then you go, well, what do you do with the students that don't have good metrics? That's what ESG is for, right? That's what the marginalized DEI ESG stuff is for on the impact investing end. So, right, if you invest in these kids who are not very likely to reach those outcomes and earn you your profit, you will at least, right, get the head hedge those losses by increasing your ESG points, right? Which will enable you to get other grants and subsidies from other funding streams, right? So like at the end of it, you'll basically have, I think, all the way at the end of the pipe in that social impact bond system, you'll have like a UBI that you get as everybody gets this UBI you start with. Then depending on what state you live in, you can get maybe some extra vouchers, ESAs, or scholarships, and then you can get some of the federal as well. And then after that, after you start to use your analytic, your ed tech, and your AI, you start to build up a dashboard, then you can reach out to be sponsored by, right, or purchased by the impact investment companies to, right, give you a leg up in the UBI network, so to speak.
Right, at least it's all sold as a big positive. This is a freaking nightmare, guys. You guys just say no. Nobody needs to be a part of this, man. And it's coming. Like, I don't think Trump has any guidelines either. I don't think he has any moral guidelines. So I don't know if he's all there.
Age, that's what he wants, with the theosophical tenor to it.
Yeah, in the Tesseract, right? He likes his double squares. There's no question about it. He's an occultist. He knows some of the higher occult stuff. And the Christians, yeah. Anyway, it's great to talk with you, John. Great job on the article.
Thanks, Bob.
And so it's schoolworldorder.info. Is that right? That's your website.
Yes,
and people can reach out to you there if they have any questions.
Yes, sir.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap it up? Kind of at the hour mark.
No, we're good. I appreciate your time, William.
Yeah,
Thanks
likewise. I appreciate yours as well. So thanks for writing the article. Again, for people who aren't seeing the visual, the title of the article is From Project 2025 to the PayPal Presidency, School Choice FinTech for a Blockchain Social Credit Economy. Again, the author is John Klyczek, Klyczek. Thanks so much for your time, John.
Thanks, buddy.
And thanks for listening, everybody. I had 150 live listeners. Please check it out. Share the shows if you like it. This is warning, guys. Be careful. It's not on the horizon. It's now. So this whole educational challenges and this saturation of AI is a really pressing, timely question. Thanks for listening.